We in the Pokemon Pocket community have been talking about the possibility of rare candy for a while. And no, I don't mean the kind of candy that's very difficult to get to, that we all know is out there somewhere, but the government is hiding it from us. Look! No, I won't get into that candy. This is about the card Rare Candy in Pokemon Pocket. I think this is possibly one of the bigger meta-changing cards coming in the new set, but there are so many insane cards coming. I had to make this video though, because there are really cool implications for this card. Even if it doesn't become the most meta thing in the game, it makes so many Stage 2 decks way more consistent, but it also sets up crazy plays with certain Stage 2 Pokemon. And that's what I want to talk about in this video, because there are some really cool combinations that I'm already thinking of, and I'm sure you've thought of some. Let me know yours in the comments. Let's get into it. First, what does Rare Candy do for those of you who live under a rock? Is the candy under the rock? Is the government candy under the rock? No, we're moving on. This is the rare candy that you saw in the Celestial Guardians trailer that everyone is talking about. At least I can't stop talking about it. You choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a Stage 2 card in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, put that card on the basic Pokemon, evolve it, skipping the Stage 1. You can't use this card during your first turn or on a basic Pokemon that was put in play this turn. So you can't go like Charmander, Charizard EX. Also, something interesting to note, this is an item card. This is not a supporter, so this can be played after you use something like Iono or Professors to dig through your deck and get this card. I mean, there are some really interesting implications for Rare Candy, for sure. So first off, not only would this make something more consistent, like a Stage 2 Venusaur, Stage 2 Blastoise, but also I think it really benefits Stage 2 that operate on a small amount of energy. So Venusaur EX Blastoise might not be the best candidate for this, but I think there are so many cards that will be unbelievably good with this, while also many Stage 2 decks could just run this to become more consistent. Immediately for me, what springs to mind is something like the new Charizard EX, which is worse than the old Charizard EX in almost every way. Except it can generate its own energy with its ability Stoke, but it requires you to be in the active spot with one energy on you as a Stage 2 Pokemon. That can be a little tricky. However, with this new change, you can now have a turn like this. Turn 1, you place Charmander down. Turn 2, your opponent's play. Turn 3, back to you, Rare Candy, Charizard EX, Stoke. You now have 4 energy on Charizard EX in the active spot as it heads to your opponent's turn 4. That is unbelievably powerful and so much better than what we have right now for this card. I think this could be one of the best uses of this, but there are so many good Stage 2s that this could work on, so let's talk about them here in this video. I just increased the brightness of my lights, by the way, so there's that. If the video's like, hey, why is that's what happened. Quickly, let's talk about the two new EX Pokemon that we know about, Lunala EX and Solgaleo EX. Lunala EX is interesting. It requires 3 energy to use Lunar Blast, so this might not be the best use of this, but you do get its ability once you evolve, so you skip your Stage 1 and you're able to use Psychic Connect to move Psychic Energy. That could be very cool. However, Solgaleo EX is a more interesting one for me. This card only requires 2 metal energy, and cards that have a low energy requirement as a Stage 2 could be really empowered by Rare Candy, right? If you don't need to spend time powering this in any crazy way, you put 1 energy on turn 2, on your turn 4, you're now putting your EX Pokemon and its second energy. Boom, you are fighting. This is a very strong situation, and with Solgaleo, you can do this from the bench, essentially giving you a free swap in at the same time, and then you hit for 120. Very powerful combination. Now here's a cool one I wanted to talk about, Greninja. Greninja's really interesting because Greninja needs absolutely no energy whatsoever, so you don't even need to worry about ever powering this. You can just simply have Froakie. You can have Frogadier in your deck in case you want to build it that way, but you also can get a really quick Evo into Greninja and start hitting with Water Shurikens right away, easily powered on the bench while you're doing other things, and Rare Candy allows you to skip that step of finding Frogadier here and skipping a turn so you can start hitting your opponents right away. This could be a really cool combo. Here's another genetic Apex Pokemon that I thought would be interesting with this, Victory Bell. So Victory Bell only has a 2 energy requirement, and it also has an ability on it, Fragrance Trap, where you can switch in a benched basic Pokemon to the active spot. You might not even necessarily power this, but it just makes it so much faster where you can switch in basic Pokemon from your opponent. And if decks are still running things like Darkrai and Giratina and things like that that want to be powering on the bench, you can now rip them from the bench and start attacking them, either with Victory Bell or something else you're powering in your deck. One of the scariest combinations possible is Gardevore. Being able to skip over a turn of Kirlia and now being able to use Psy Shadow much faster and power Psychic Pokemon in the active spot is actually really insane. It feels like Psychic is going to have a very, very strong set here. Of course, we don't know what else is in the meta. We don't know what other cards are really going to start to dominate. I don't know what Decidueye or something is going to look like, right? Which we should talk about, because Decidueye, Incineroar, and Primarina are all also stage 2s. These could be crazy with rare candy. But back to Gardy. Gardevore is just incredibly solid. Its biggest problem has always been getting its stage 2 online, but the ability to power the active spot every single turn from the bench is crazy good, and this just makes that even more doable, and it makes it faster. Next, I want to talk about an interesting card. So Gengar EX from Genetic Apex could be a cool card to do this with, especially because it stops your opponents from playing supporters. But just the basic Gengar in Genetic Apex only requires a single energy, and you're kind of creating that effect by attacking your opponents. So you completely skip over Haunter. You literally go Ghastly to Gengar, and you need 1 energy to power it, allowing you to power something else on the bench. You could literally put Ghastly in the active spot. You could put Giratina EX on the bench. You can power Giratina, and then as soon as you're able to evolve Gengar, you evolve it straight to Gengar, skipping Haunter, and you only need 1 energy to fight. That is incredibly strong. Next is kind of an interesting thought where you could actually jump to Pidgeot very fast and use its ability Drive Off. So not only could you power this energy-wise in a nice curve, right? You 1 energy on Pidgey, now 2 energy on Pidgeot, but also just having this on the bench, you can quickly drive off your opponents and disrupt them setting up a wall, which could be really powerful, right? If they only have 1 Druddigon or 1 wall that they want in that active spot, you can evolve quickly with something like this on the bench to give you a ton of utility and not even focus on it as an attacker. If Gardevore wasn't scary enough, I think Superior might even be scarier. Obviously, Jungle Totem allows you to double the energy essentially attached to grass Pokemon. Now you're able to skip its mid-evo, meaning you could put Celebi in an active spot, right? You could have Snivy on the bench, and you could quickly become Superior. You could do it very quickly and already be swinging with Celebi on turn 4 with 4 coins, which is just, I mean, I don't know if we necessarily want flashbacks of Celebi and Superior. It wasn't a super meta deck or anything like that, but it created some crazy situations, and now Celebi could have that even faster, with Superior getting online really fast. This also opens up some interesting possibilities for other grass cards that found it hard to play with Superior because Superior was a stage 2. If you have multiple stage 2s in a deck, it can be a little tricky to get them all online. However, with rare candy, you might actually have situations where you can run 2 stage 2 lines of Pokemon and not be as worried. That still might be tough in a 20 card deck, but it's a really crazy thought that Superior could be online that fast. One that I'm really excited about is Infernape EX. Infernape EX is really cool because it only requires 2 energy to attack. It attacks for a lot of damage, 140, has really solid HP, and once it attacks, it does discard all the energy attached to it, so you have almost no benefit at all in waiting to attack with Infernape. You want to get really aggressive with this card. This allows you to attack even faster. If you're going turn 2, you could get Infernape turn 4 and be hitting with it, Pocket, which would be crazy powerful. Togekiss is another really cool one. This card already is seeing some play in the current meta just because being able to attack for 60, then 120, or possibly even more 170 with Cynthia is already really good. But considering it only takes 2 energy, if you're able to switch, skip over Togetic, you're in a really great spot, right? One energy Togepi, 2 energy Togekiss, you're swinging for 60, and next turn you hit for 120. Really powerful, and again, these low energy stage 2s set up some really cool plays with rare candy. Now, here's a fun one, Dusknoir. Dusknoir is a very unique Pokemon because its ability allows you to move damage around the battlefield. You can move damage over to Dusknoir away from one of your Pokemon that's already taken some damage. However, it's a little tough to get online, right? I mean, there's retreat costs associated with these Pokemon. It's a stage 2, but now it more quickly sort of becomes this bank where you can throw damage from an EX Pokemon on it and not have to worry about that stage 1 in between. It could just make it a lot more consistent when you are trying to build that sort of health battery on the bench. Glade EX, this is already a very consistent card, but being able to literally swap out Kirlia, I mean, you'd probably still have it in your deck because you just want this to be super, super consistent. But if you happen to go Routes on turn 2, Glade EX on turn 4, that's nuts, and you have perfect energy ramp to do that. Like, it's just crazy. You literally 1 energy turn 2, Routes, 2 energy turn 4, Glade. Nuts. I think both Garchomp and Garchomp EX could benefit from this, obviously being able to skip over Gabite. Garchomp EX is maybe the most interesting because it is literally a 1 energy attack for linear attack. Yes, you would still want to power it for Dragon Claw, but having the ability to attack anything on the board, not just, of course, the active spot, for a single energy, especially given that you could do this on turn 3, is pretty crazy. Even if they have Magikarp on their bench with a cape on it, you are able to take it in a single turn. So that's really, really powerful, and it actually sets up going turn 1 with Garchomp to not be so miserable. Now, the Garchomp that is non-EX, you definitely could skip over your mid-evo, but because of the energy you need for it, this one could still be kind of tough. Just like Greninja, another Pokemon that really springs to mind is Crobat, right? Arceus Crobat decks are really fun, but it does take multiple turns. You have to go Zubat, Golbat, Crobat, you have to get them all, you have to have them on the bench, you also need Arceus. This just makes it a little more possible to have Crobat. It also puts you in situations where you may be attacking more aggressively with Crobat in that active spot because you're able to evolve it so fast. It has a free retreat cost, and it only costs 1 energy to attack. Either way, having things like Greninja, Crobat online faster is really powerful. One of my favorites from the new set, Beedrill EX. I don't know if this will make it into a ton of Beedrill decks, but literally being able to attach 1 energy on a Weedle and then 2 on a Beedrill, you are now hitting and taking energy off your opponents. That is very powerful. The times this happens, if you're just playing like a cheesy Beedrill deck, like not the bees that I showed on the channel, you could truly, on turn 4, be taking energy from your opponents with an EX Pokemon with a ludicrous health pool right away, slowing them down the entire, like, this is such a fun idea. I cannot wait to try this. I also am devastated because I know it's going to happen against me in a ranked ladder and there will be nothing I can do. Speaking of new grass Pokemon, of course, we have to talk about Meowcarada. It attacks for only 2 energy. Into an EX Pokemon, you're doing 130 damage for 2 energy. The tough thing about this is Sprigatito is so valuable that sometimes you just keep it in that active spot to use its ability Cry for Help. But imagine you cry for help, you pull Meowcarada, you have rare candy, you are attacking right away. It's just, oh, this is so nuts. The new Alakazam is another cool card for this. Another 2 energy stage 2. It just sets up really nice situations when you are able to power this early. 80 damage is very considerable for this, and you are damaging benched Pokemon, which I think is very cool. Now, there is one more thing that I haven't talked about, and I'm sure there are a few Pokemon I've missed. Please let me know some of yours that you're just like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to try this. But there is one thing that we needed to talk about, and that is fossils. So let's take a look at something like Skull Fossil and Rampardos. Skull Fossil reads, play this as if it were a 40 HP basic Pokemon. At any time during your turn, you can discard it from play. This card can't retreat. Okay, I don't know the exact ruling on this, but I saw on Twitter, and I was talking to Zatumi briefly about this, that you have the ability in the normal TCG to go straight from a fossil to the stage 2, counting it as a basic. So Zen shared with me this question from the Pokemon trading card game Rulings Compendium here about rare candy and fossils. Question: can you use rare candy to evolve a mysterious fossil into Amistar or Kabutops, or use it on a root/claw fossil to evolve into Cradily or Armaldo? It can. It counts as a basic Pokemon while in play. Amistar, Kabutops, Cradily, blah, blah, blah. Our stage 2 Pokemon, you could use rare candy on the fossil trainer to skip them. Okay, so this is wild, and it is just we were talking about possibly how you would make fossil decks more consistent, and this adds a weird additional layer to it because it does make it more consistent, but you're still not consistently necessarily finding the fossil. However, this does mean that you can Rampardos on turn 3 of the game and crack your opponent for insane damage for a single energy. This means that you can Bastiodon super early, even have it in the active spot as a wall that is really, really hard to take down while your opponent has to coin flip against it. Like, if this is true, holy. And I don't see a reason why it is not. I just didn't want to include a ton of fossils in this video because I didn't know exactly if this would be the case. However, it looks like, yes, this will also work on fossils. I know. I'm just like kind of geeking about this card, which is why I wanted to make this video. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. As always, yeah, please let me know what combinations you're excited about in the comments. I can't wait for this new set, and I'll see y'all very soon. Bye, guys. We did it.